see if I can film this without wind interruption. On a bike. I so graciously had a bike for $40 or so. It's $35, but I gave him 40. Sorry, I need to get I need to pull out my I have a homemade selfie stick. I'm sure the audio is going to be destroyed from the wind. I can go slower though. I'm just in a different kind of position, shaping things up differently, able to have more focus for what I need instead of having to deal with people and places that aren't conducive to my spiritual development. Inside joke. Number 435. One thing I wanted to say is that the intentions one has, they are actually actions on the higher plane. By just holding the intention to do something or to align with something, that equates to an action. It's a reflection. An action on the higher plane, to the point where it's literally like a trajectory of our thoughts and beliefs that always end up on the higher plane as an actual experience, an organized event. And so we think down here they're just energies or frequencies, but if you could see the whole thing, each energy and frequency is actually extending from and to a life experience that doesn't exist without those energies. So whatever we're holding in our minds, our intentions and beliefs, those are actual experiences, meaning when we change the intentions and shape them up, if you will, we're aligning with different life experiences. We're not creating, eventually coming to the creation of those life experiences. They already exist. They're in a future or alternate plane that we can't see, but is just as real. And so that's the point, that we're actually shaping the future through the intentions, but it's not that it comes into creation, it's that they already exist. And you see this when you aren't rooted entirely in the physical plane, that they're already there. You don't have to wait for them or anything like that, which is why when you can see in these ways, you already know what you're interacting with. And so the main idea is that what we think is something that influences us later on is actually occurring right now. And if we could see the whole picture, none of it is a kind of if and then, or a now and then, now and later kind of program or statement. Is actually occurring right now. The physical eyes simply can't see the trajectory into higher space where there are the wrapped up possibilities that relate to these alternate or future planes. The future plane, it's basically an extended plane, like an abstraction, a plane of abstraction related to angular momentum of the motion that is basically used by the universe to describe the flow of time in the here and now. You know, a certain frequency abstracted from that present moment, or this moment, you get what's called the future plane, or the alternate dimension. You got to calculate it to get there. Your brain automatically does it. It's like a supercomputer for that process. But the point is, that calculation, or the calculated plane that you reach, is just as real as this one. And in that sense, they're both pretty much projections. One is just a trajectory that's expanded based upon the energies that you have now, a combination of frequencies and decisions, or it's like configurations of your mind. If you notice how you interact in the moment, what energy it takes, it's a configuration of energy in the brain. Same thing as a smile. You smile, okay, or you frown, it's a configuration of your muscles in your face, and that configuration, when freely occurring, is due to chemicals in the body, the brain, even hormones and things like that. And so the trajectory your mind is flowing within or towards or through is also due to an energetic configuration, and you can call that your soul. Which your bio-mind energetic configuration, that's the way your soul is either interacting in a range of frequencies, which are just going to show more or less of a computational pattern that repeats the same, or it shows a kind of organic growth pattern, which is only present in sentient organisms that contain a kind of reflection of these life principles that are related to self-control and compassion and so on. You know, you're not going to find a trajectory or a life principle reflecting such things if there's no, if it's not a souled sentient organism. It'll just be like a computer. You'll see the same thing that was there before being calculated to lead into what's new. If it's a souled organism, a sentient being making those decisions, you'll see a type of novelty or creativity that occurs, which incorporates the knowledge of the presence of other sentient systems, which is way beyond a computing system. It's much more. It's literally the maximal amount of computational power for a universe to do that. The soul is. I was gonna do this at the house, but I like doing outdoor videos. The other aspect to the intentions is that we perceive to be what we perceive to be the other plane, the future, however you want to look at it, in what is pretty much a technological matrix system. This could be perceived as different lives. They're really different layers of a computational system that's extrapolating from our own internal processes to create these realities, basically. And but the idea is that what is plaguing a person in this life, the intentions, beliefs, addictions, so on, that haven't become physical and aren't actually there in physical form, those could be manifested as actual physical aspects of the existence in a later life, which is actually simultaneous. And so that's why if there's something there, it must be brought out, otherwise it will come back around full circle. The goal is to get out of the turn-based system where it just keeps going and going and going. But that's where some of these projects, these mystery schools, come into play, of pulling out the hidden expressions and addictions or fears within the person, because until then they'll doom that individual to coming back around in one of these experiences, physical experiences, cycles, which is called a reincarnation system, but it's more kind of like a forced reset and mental spiritual entrapment. It's not like, oh, we get to go again and again and again. It's like all the same things that you can't get over are coming back to plague you. But that's where this idea is grounded in, that in your mind, where there are unfinished business or something like that, that's where it will continue if you do not realize these things and overcome them when you have the chance. So the idea is that the intentions, I've said this before, everything's going to begin to change soon. But not that, but I said that before too. That your energetic aspect is pretty much in and mainly outside of your body in these standing waves. And so it's as if the future trajectory of your position, maybe of your avatar, of your body, in the universe, or more so in time, is depicted as the configuration of energy that is being emitted by your brain and body. And that energy can be looked at as your soul or your mind. And so, in that way, the future
experiences that will manifest as physical reality, physical experiences, can be likened to or looked at as, or even deciphered through or decoded, looking at the energy, analyzing the energy around the brain and body. And mainstream science doesn't really openly look at the technology that's used for that. But the idea is that their hints are everywhere. So your feelings, your intentions build up and accumulate and accrete and then become thoughts, or more so, your intentions become feelings, and then your feelings build up and become thoughts. And then it's actually, I added another one, I had it right the first time. Your thoughts build up and accrete and become words, and then your words build up and accrete and accumulate and become actions. And then there's even another one where then your actions develop character. And then there's even another one where character then develops to become your destiny throughout all the time. The point is, if you follow the pattern, if you could see, a machine that could see your thoughts and your intentions, okay, well then say you take a 60-second measurement of your energies. Imagine you're taking a heart rate recording and trying to determine if there will be likelihood of a disease or something like that later on. Well, it's the same thing. If you look at your brain waves and you take over 60 seconds or 60 minutes, whatever it is, and you project or extrapolate and you examine and analyze to see what tendencies and aspects of that pattern are likely going to expand and become the either primary changes or dominating features, or will become aspects that play a larger role and might not be the primary aspect but are still prominent enough to mention. And so say there's tendencies for fear or something like that, okay, in addiction to one aspect of life or another, well, you can predict where that's going to come back up, or at least what's going to come up. And so it's the same thing. But the point is, if you had powerful enough technology, you could do that to the universe, and then you could find the reality that exists where there's a future state where those hidden aspects are actually a reality. It's like this. You could calculate it to the degree where you have 99.99% accuracy of what may come. Well, if you have near absolute accuracy, you're looking at what will be. And in that sense, you're looking at what is, what actually does exist, but off in a future or an abstract plane. And so your mind is pretty much like that. And the beginning of the mind for this world, I guess, is the ability to look into these abstract planes and see beyond just the physical plane. That's the idea behind ideas, or the mind, that it's the ability to look into the abstract. And from there, become a co-creator and project and create reality on a more than purely physically causal layer. And so that's pretty much the idea behind that. And as well, the idea of other lives is not that we're reincarnating and there are many lives over and over, but that there are simultaneous arrays, like light being spliced out or split into an array of our energy that is being managed in more than one layer simultaneously. And the other aspect of that is there's always a point to what I'm saying, or this knowledge, that's around. Well, what happens if you take the layers and combine them back into one layer? Well, you would have super knowledge of what's going on, and you would really know that everywhere you had an intention, or you had an experience, or you seemingly sought to attain a certain aspect, that it was something else controlling the situation to kind of lean the chance, the opportunities in one favor or another. And you could see it's more like a matrix or puppetry system where something is kind of playing with us, if you will. However you want to look at it beyond that is up to you, whether it's a game or a school or a mind game, mind prison. But that's the idea, that there are time layers and it's split up in order for us to not really know what's actually going on throughout the entirety of it. And if we ever gain access to more than one layer, we get that much more powerful. If we ever gain access to multiple layers beyond the physical, and we basically begin to transform our mind, we're no longer contained within the limitations of just one layer. And at that point, you're a multi-layered or an omni-layered being, which we don't really have words for, but they call those various layers of superhuman qualities. And imagine you see somebody walking down the street, and you can tell by the way they walk, the way their head's kind of moving, and you can feel the energy, you can sense, you can smell the energy coming off of their brain, their mind, and you can see this person is desiring this, or they've had this type of traumatic experience and it's going to lead on because they've had that and they're not getting over it, or this person's had that and they're right there, and within 3 days they're going to get the experience that they need, or it's going to, whatever's going to get kicked back right in their face, and they're going to be up to their neck with it, and they're going to have enough, and they're done. They're right at the breaking point of breaking free from whatever is holding the other person back. And imagine you could see that. You're seeing into another world at that point, but that world is actually what we're doing. It's what we are. We're multiple layers, but we're just seeing one of them at this point. And so the idea is breaking free from the view of being limited to just the one layer and just the one time and space. We see just one space and one time, and it keeps going and changing like a cascade. It's not just one, it's the multiple aspects of all of them. And if you see more than that one, you begin to become more powerful. If you ever see an order of magnitude of the many, you become basically superhuman, or what we were, you could say originally, but those words don't match. And the idea is that if you could see, it's very mundane, it's very direct. If you could see now and you get a snapshot of the brainwaves and feeling you had as a kid or 10 years ago, whatever it is, and you overlaid them real quick for a split second, you would get a glimpse of a world beyond this world, because you would see how the chess pieces are arranged and lined up, and you would see what's missing or what's different or how things have evolved, and you would instantly know what you're basically incapable of seeing now if you're just viewing through the conscious mind alone, the ego. That's why these experiences which push us outside of that singular view tend to overwhelm the ego. And when it overwhelms the ego, it's not that there's no one there, there's nothing left, it's that there is whoever is there, whoever's remains is more than human, or more than what was there before. It's more than the limitations that we used to describe the physical view and just that physical temporal layer. And so there's a paradox, because how can we be the one here using this to see ourselves and simultaneously be using that to know that we're more than that? It's because the whole thing is actually it's more like a dream, and we're instantly more than that, but we're working to get that, but we're also, when we began, we were more than that. So it's always there. It means the work done to get to where we are going nullifies itself, because it's not that it's already it's not that it's unnecessary, but that it is already the way it is. But we still have to do the work, because we don't have to do the work, but we have to be able to convince ourselves and accept that. And the easiest way at first is to do the work, which is like walking up the steps. But once you realize the steps move with you, it's like Jacob's ladder, you can just begin jumping them, or you can go around the steps that are continuously going like this, and you can literally climb the hand railing around the other side, and at that point, you do whatever you want. But you get the results of seeing beyond the limitations from walking up the steps, and that's kind of like time and putting the days and the patterns together. Well, if you're breaking the boundaries of time, then where it would normally take you a certain amount of time to become smarter, to advance, to overcome certain situations, fear, to grow, you can literally sit back and alter your brainwaves using your intentions, your mind, and reduce the limitations, and literally walk around these little padlocks that are all around ourselves from trauma or memory or programming and instructions, poor instructions from the system, and you can basically defeat it all instantly. And that's the other aspect, that the paradox is not that we're changing effort or continuously and infinitely to become something else. It's that we're infinitely perfect, if you will. And once we come here, there's programming and basically illusion and disinformation and distortion. And so all we're doing actually is reducing the distortion. This is one of the previous talks I had participated in, and we're reducing the distortion, we're removing that, and that's how we're actually producing something of value. That's how we're actually gaining or growing. It's opposite. You would think you pick up the dirt, put it in the pile, and it gets bigger and bigger. That way you have more value, more substance from the more work you do. It's the opposite. You take the dirt from where your garden is and throw it out into the field, and then the fruit appear, then you get the value. It doesn't make any sense, but it's because we're in the type of inversion system. And so more on the inversion system, which is, I like when things just add up, or maybe I don't like that, and that's why it happens. Anyway, well, that even that goes into what I want to talk about. So there's the matrix system, the mind control system, the temporal duality and splaying of consciousness into these simultaneous yet out of sync layers that we must synchronize and combine back into one, just like multiple personalities or something, in order to actually know ourselves and free ourselves from these illusions, where it's literally like rats in a maze and say we're all the rats. The point is, until they all get up into the same slot going into the same exit point, then even if one survives or gets out or whatever, the other rats are still in the maze. So they all have to survive. All your pieces of yourself have to do that. And in order to do that, in order to find liberation or get to the truth, they have to recombine or come to the same area. And basically, the parts must know each other. Knowing yourself is taking the split personality, multiple layers of consciousness and being, and making them know one another. And then you become the extra dimensional, or more so extra like perceptual, I can't think of the word, it's like an abstraction, where you're literally the third party that's created as a for product instead of a byproduct, as a result of these secondary participles, or not really the right word, portions of yourself recombining. And it's paradoxing because they're not recombining, because it's not that they were together, it's that there was one that gets splayed into many. And but the idea is there's that, and then the other aspect about what's to like and what's not to like is that what you agree with, or what you desire and what you don't desire combine to create friction or catalysts, and through that catalyst, growth is formed. And so this also falls in line with the illusion or the agenda, where there's suffering and continual forgetfulness and pain, and through that we're supposed to get somewhere. It's basically the picking up the dirt and putting it in the garden, when in actuality the goal is to get rid of all that's holding us back and to get rid of all the suffering. And so, but the idea is that when we learn that that's the trick that's going on, we can manage it much better by more or less tricking the system that seeks to induce suffering in order to gain control of us. And you do this by flipping the polarity of what you desire or don't desire. And there are rather harsh inversions of this, as far as basically questionable activities and ritualistic processes. But the idea is, if you can do this and master it, you found liberation, your mind is free. The goal is to do this without hurting another person, or endangering another person, or endangering or hurting yourself. Basically without losing control, because that's, how could you lose control? Well, that's like the only thing that happens. Either people at A just forget about the whole other reality, or the truth about who they are or who they were when they came into this world, and they basically either forget and goes on, or they end up hurting other people, or they get dragged down and brought down into the level of this control system, this war and subjugation and so on, or they realize this possible method and they begin to use it, but then they do it too much, or it's not controlled enough, and they wake up too fast, basically. So the balance is where the more responsible area or method is, and it's basically not hurting yourself or another person. And but that's where these processes, these underground bases, the rituals, and inversion of consciousness comes into play. And as well, there's just a lot to learn. There's a lot going on. But the idea is, if you can manage and realize where your desires, or what you think you desire, is being used to control you, or what you don't desire and you fear to the level of fearing, basically, or irrational fears, unnecessary suffering is used against you, and you can use that as your own power. Then you're in control at a degree that the system normally literally controls people. Easy way to understand this, easy way to bring this back down to ground level: a cold shower. I've been taking those pretty recently, and I realized, or pretty often recently, and I realized once you get used to it, it goes right back, because I used to do it as a kid. I used to do a lot of stuff as a kid. Once you get used to it, you go right back to the process, and eventually that kind of freak out, panicky, deep breath reaction, that simple reaction of doing it, you can flip a switch after, the first few times, and you can basically just do it. And once you've done that, you'll know exactly what I mean, because it's either and flip out because it's ice cold water, or semi-cold. Don't jump. If it hurts you, don't do it. That's another unwritten rule. Don't use actual pain to do it, because that could be interpreted on another level as causing harm. That could be in another life, accidentally lighting yourself on fire, or an accident, something. It translates into this matrix as something unpredictable. So don't use overwhelming pain and actual injury, but just discomfort, subtle discomfort. And once you're used to it, though, ice cold stuff isn't going to hurt that bad. If you haven't done it in a while, and it's, you just woke up or something, and you spray ice cold water on your feet, and then your neck and your underarms, it can cause problems. And you also don't want to cause hyperventilation, at least not too much, and you don't want to cause muscular constriction, which I've had an issue with, where all your muscles end up locking up. But once and it causes a liver flush as well, when the good aspect. But in doing that, you can control yourself. It's part of delayed gratification. It's all part of the game of controlling your mind instead of having your mind control you. Because if your mind control you, and the aspect of your mind that is incorporating this control is incorporating and connected through the perceptual system, which is connected to the realm, or this physical material world, then it's the realm or some other person or being who is in control of the physical world, who's then controlling your perceptual system and controlling your mind and controlling you. So it's literally like grabbing the bull by the horns, or grabbing the reins and controlling the system yourself. You're like guiding the pilot, guy that controls the reins. There's another word for it. But I also don't like the idea of somebody controlling us with reins, but you get the idea. If you were grabbing the wheels to control the steering wheel and control the person trying to control the steering wheel, trying to use you as a vehicle. But the point is, you're using you as a vehicle, because you're using the body. But once you understand that, especially if you can't understand that, if you do it, you'll understand it to the point where a few times, because it's basically the difference between being super in pain and freaked out, and then being able to go with it and relax, and you realize there's a great ability in doing that. And it doesn't mean, okay, let's just light people on fire, or we're getting this terrible situation that's going on, so just go with it, just relax. No, it doesn't mean that. That's even worse than letting or never doing this practice, because then you're taking the inversion of the enslavement and using it to enslave yourself because you're afraid of change and power. That's worse than being enslaved, because then that person can never wake up, which is what a lot of people are like when they basically look at controlling their own mind as something wrong and forbidden, which is just strange. But the idea is you'll understand that the difference between A and B is there's a less suffering, because that's the other point, is that one, it's a choice. The difference is that there's a choice. One, you react. You can't do it. You can't not do it. There's no point in time where there's an exchange of asking the question why or how or if. It's just happening. The other one is all choice. The defining feature is a choice. And that's also the defining feature of brainwaves or change or whatever it is. The theme of any experience where choice is the defining feature is that you're in control, and that extrapolates into these other layers, these other realms, as you being in control. If you take it down in energetic form and retranslate it into another type of parallel reality of just another storyline, It's not going to be one where now there's like a garbage truck eating you and you're like, you have no control. No, as long as you have control in one, you have control in the other. As above, so below, they correspond. And so that's the whole point. All you have to do is instigate or introduce, not instigate, introduce control. And so there's many ways of creating that and doing it. And that's the point, though. If you can manage to create one without, again, lighting somebody on fire or something crazy like that, if you can do that, then you have the power to do it. You're in control. Because as well, if you're doing it and you require these other, harsh and damaging means, it's not really, that doesn't, one, you don't always get that opportunity. Two, you're not really in control because you're using somebody else and taking the energy away from them. That's not always going to be there, so on and so forth. And so it's not really control if you're basically breaking the boundary of what you would want done to yourself, or this harmonious aspect which is present when you're not overstepping somebody else's boundary, basically. In other words, people who do this to other people, they don't benefit because they're just taking control from them. But there's an image there. There's a false brain that benefits because it will believe, it will identify with the positive in that and neglect or ignore the negative, that they're not actually gaining control of themselves. But it'll believe, it'll trick you into believing that you've done something, and that's where people, can get off torturing somebody or something like that, because it's tickling the same aspects of the brain and the mind. But if they were truly aware and self-aware, they would see it's not quite the same. And so, not like that's what everybody does or anything like that, but there's a problem with that. And so the other aspect of it being choice and having the co-creative aspect basically in there is so simple. You're just shrinking down a simple thing into one very complex thing into one simple situation and making that blueprint, that format fit the fundamental of what you want, which is bringing control. And the other aspect is one hurts, well, the other one without control, and one doesn't. And you could watch it mid session or whatever, where it's you're freaking out and after you catch what's going on and you catch those brainwaves and you go, oh yeah, we're doing this. Nope. And it's hitting you and you're breathing deep and not allowing yourself to hyperventilate and panic, and it doesn't hurt. It's like cold, it's discomforting, okay, it's not your normal, but it's not pain. At first, the other one is freaking, it hurts. I'm tired, I'll get more sleep. Anyway, it hurts at first, and it's really, that's the other aspect, and this is where I'm talking about you'll get it, you'll just snap to, you'll realize what's going on, because how can it hurt and not hurt based upon whether you are focusing in a certain way? How could pain of something perceptually taking place be an illusion? It's because we're set up to basically be manipulable through these systems. Either that or we just get lazy, and that's what's happened. But the system uses that against us, kind of like cattle in that sense. And so try that and think about that. There's one, I've been getting deja vu bad lately, or good, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to run through this 24 minutes. I'm going to run through this real quick. I thought this would be like 5 minutes. And so the intentions are entangled with actions on a higher plane or a parallel. Just by, and then that's weird. You might have heard me say this before, or something controls my mouse every once in a while. It's like scrolling for me. And so, wow, no, did it again. The intentions are entangled with actions on a higher plane just by having intentions, and now I don't know where I'm reading from. Just by having intentions and letting them entangle or reside within, you are entangling or enabling with the actual actions that are simultaneously taking place in an alternate reality. Meaning the energies, the actions, or the intentions, the feelings are actually the representative from this view what exists in an alternate or parallel reality, where if you were there, that would be physical. You would be in that situation, but you would have the inkling of where you were, what you were feeling, what you were thinking about off in your mind, which would be how this reality is seen or sensed from over there. And so there's like an interplay, a flip-flop of energy versus physical and mind versus actual. And it gets even more interesting. And so the system is based on a projected trajectory of time activated through simply having the intentions or energies or frequencies required to represent those actions in your mind. By having those present in your mind, you are actually bringing them into occurrence in the future plane or a higher energetic plane. The other realities, and so basically you're configuring what's happening out there in the future now simultaneously through what you're doing here now, painting as if your mind is the painting out of the canvas into time, into a trans-dimensional artwork or painting process, canvas. And it takes a little bit to get it, but it's really like one of those Alex Gray paintings or something. And as well, this is the entanglement. This is the cube thing. This is not the fulfillment of all. This is like our spirits wrapped up into this machine, these gears that are taking our energy and gluing them to different realities, parallels, and really we should all be self-contained within one complete one, where it would all be here present within one. Imagine that. You put it all together and it's like this beautiful artwork, interdimensional flowing thing. What happens if you get there and it's just like this? And you go back to this one and it's just like this physical, and you go to another one and it's just like this. Well, when do you ever get to enjoy the beauty of it? Something is taking the aspect of our mind that's capable of seeing the entire picture at once. So the fact that we have this physical reality, which is actually expressed as one of those beautiful interdimensional, multidimensional, colored, spiritual, higher dimensional realities, cascades of information and light and so on and so forth, and we see it only as physical reality, that means we're basically blind. We're third eye blind. And that's a whole other issue, whether it's one way or the other, trap or liberation, so on and so forth. And so, to maybe narrow that down, the liberation at this point of what I'm explaining is just about whether you're making decisions and choices based upon whether you're being manipulated by the mechanism, the format of experience here, or whether you're kind of like controlling holding the ropes, if you will. The reins, ropes. And so the other realities or planes could be interpreted as other lives. In this life, you experience the intentions or emotion of one existence. In the next, that is the actual physical reality, or the actual reality in physical terms. The goal is to liberate from the matrix of turns, meaning here you go now. What are you going to do with your turns, your opportunities? What kind of other reality are you going to paint? And it's like, well, you didn't find liberation here, so it's like, now you get another turn. Your turn again, trying the next one. The point is, it's a wheel. There's never like, oh, you made it to the finish line. It just keeps going. The point is to stop it here and now and stop asking the question, stop giving the power away, stop letting something else basically say, well, if you react this way, it'll hurt a little bit, and then you can run over here to this side. It's to literally sit here and not move. Just like I said with the spinning of the ring and the wave of your consciousness, to put the tack in and draw out your recording of the now moment until you become this long body of what is taking place throughout time, instead of just continuously going along the hula hoop up and down, around and around. And if you literally become like a rock, eventually it stresses the system and you'll get resistance, and eventually you'll learn how to manage what's going on. Beyond that, it's a little bit weird to talk about. This is an event, this is something that's happening. Basically, the simulation, the system began to try and keep people in, because somebody wrote a script to hand them all the power and keep everyone here because they figured out how to cheat in the game, how to beat the game or win the game, and instead of leaving, they stayed here to rule over everybody and get all their pleasure in and fall. And instead of saying, well, it's reaction, I can choose not to give into this desire and then have to feel this fear and react. I can liberate myself. They said, well, no, but we could just have them get stuck. We can half liberate ourselves, but then stay here and have all the pleasure for ourselves. That's what they did. That means they fell from the higher aspect of what you should do or would want to do, or any normal person, not normal, but any sensible, sentient person would do. And they basically chose to dissolve themselves into the system just to have some power over a video game. And that's the aspect, though, that it's a simulation, and the simulation is meant to more or less have a purpose, and then it's not meant to be real. A simulation is not meant to replace reality. If that happens, it's an inversion. We're in the inversion. Why do they have the inversions? Because everything that happens here must be backwards. Why? Because if you go into a simulation and your mind is plugged in, and one of these underground-based simulator devices, and you create your bedroom, the next time you go to your bedroom, your mind can't tell if it's real or not, and you go insane. I've seen it happen. That's what happens. So every time we're out here and we create something that actually exists on the other end, but we're in the sim and it's like a not that, they make it backwards, because if we create the real thing, it'll cause cosmic insanity beyond what's already here in the species. And then there are other secondary explanations, but have fun with that. Not have fun with that. We'll that's for another time, as far as negative inversion and all that, so on and so forth, other species. And so when a person, basically this goes in line with the highs and lows, and how what we don't want and what we do want, when they combine, we create catalysts that produce growth. And so when a person intrudes energetically within a person's life or reality, one must answer with the proper neutral response in order to disengage and detangle their energy from the intruders and thus maintain the original power level. If somebody's wasting your time, throwing insults, subtle jokes, or making a joke of it, or subtle mind control gaslighting, if we interact and engage in that and attempt to treat it from the layer that it's coming at us, that's where it's like playing ping pong ball, and you throw the ping pong and then they throw a rock or a watermelon at you. You can't play that game because they're not playing the game. They're not playing by rules. They're just joking. They're making a mockery of the truth. And so you can't come at that as if they want to know the truth in order to treat that. And so the point is a neutral response that draws the line and maintains the distance and the difference, the separation of their reality and your reality, is the key to holding on to your energy, maintaining your energy, and not accepting any of theirs. And that's any intruder, any situation, any poison, basically. And so this has to do with how the system is used to manipulate people, and how what we perceive egotistically and emotionally is used to basically get in people's minds, to get in people's heads, to control them. And it's not controlling your action at this point, yet it's controlling first the feelings, and from that they must entangle your intentions and say, yes, you do want to interact with me because I'm a dum-dum and I have nothing to do with anything, and here you go, here's this stupid comment or stupid remark, and in the streets or internet, wherever it is, and at work, and now you're going to have to talk to this person, deal with this person. The first thing is the intention, where you can say, I don't intend to do that. I intend to go finish making my sandwich or whatever I was on my way to do. And that's the intention. And so if that doesn't get taken, your feeling doesn't get taken. If your feeling doesn't get taken, your thoughts don't get taken. If your thoughts don't get taken, your words or your expressions don't get taken. If your expressions and words don't get taken, your actions don't get taken. Your time has not been wasted, and they become a memory, a forgotten shell of some energetic insectoid thing trying to steal your charge. That's what it's about, stealing charge and pulling polarization, because that's what it's about. And as well as generating charge, polarized charge, instead of non-dual energy, just pure force. If you're walking around, you're kind of like flexed like this, okay, you have more or less potential charge within you. You can even say it's kinetic, because the muscles technically vibrate when you're doing that. If you literally have just one arm cocked back or something like that, it's polarized. Or if you have a ball and it's heavy on one end, it's polarized. Somebody comes up and pushes you on that end, you're going to flip over. Okay, if you're solid, you're in a horse stance, in like karate, and you're flexed. Okay, somebody comes and pushes you, you're going to bounce off and fall and hit their, not going to fall and hit their head, but they're going to bounce off you. Because you're going to be solid. That's the point. That's the difference between polarized and magnetized towards one or the other, and just being completely non-dual. For instance, if you're completely non-dual and charged, and somebody's like, they have something, okay, well, you could fight for them and say, yeah, that's a good idea. And of course, them pushing on you, it's like Aikido at that point, where you're going to pull with them, spin, turn, and, bring the wrist up and then down, and they're going to flip that way. Not expecting to give, for you to give, thinking there's going to be a shell of energy built up and pushing and resisting against you. If you're real smart, you'll give them a split second of push, and then give with them, and they fly that way real fast. It's hilarious. Martial arts. But that's mental martial arts at that point, emotional, energetic. But that's the point where that's what happens with this realm. That's what happens literally with the electromagnetic devices, soul magnets, scalar devices, mind control, mind entrainment systems, where these basically interdimensional organisms use this to keep us within this realm. If you're magnetized one way or another, all they do is make a puppet that looks like the opposite of what you're afraid of, what you fear, what you desire, what you don't want, whatever it is. Sticks that out, a holographic form an entrainment signal, and if you don't know this, and if you are one way or another, you'll stick right to it, and now they drag the puppet muppet thing down and you're stuck. Okay, or they repel and it repulses you and you go back the other way energetically, okay, because all of this has to be in the subconscious, in the unconscious, second nature or first nature actually, or the beyond just the belief system. It has to be within muscle memory, it has to be within your soul level of learning, because when your ego is gone, and if it's something that somebody told you and it's just in the conscious mind of, okay, this is something that happened in physical reality and it might be one way or another, but it's not actually a part of me, it's a part of thoughts and ideas that somebody gave me, okay, you're not going to remember it by the time you're all the way out there facing the exit gate or looking within the in gate, the in path. This has to be done every day till the point where, you know, in your dreams, to the point where it's actually your first nature. And that's another aspect, every day, to the point where you're doing it in your dreams. And I'm telling you, that's the journey. Not you went up to the mountain, you went that way, you went over here, you swam over there. No, it's the fact that you do this in the shower. That kind of sounds weird. You did it in the shower, on waking up, at the person who, you know, gave you a challenge, a resistance in the street, at work or school. These are all terrible places. In the field over there, in your mind, when you felt the way you were over there, when you felt the way you were downstairs, when you felt the way you were with somebody in your family, with somebody that you don't know, with something in the media, in your dreams, in a nightmare. That's the place, that's the journey, that's the trajectory, the trail, the journey through frequencies of all the different layers of your mind within the different areas of reality where you are challenged. And all the challenges, they put something up and you either stick to it and it grabs and I was like, I got you. Or it doesn't, and it doesn't stick to you. It's like the fly paper with the monks walking across the paper. Okay, it's the same thing. That's all it is. If it sticks to you, now you have karmic drag. You're taking your energy and trying to fly with it, attain a high rate of speed, velocity, however you want to look at that. Spin, proportion, harmonics, harmony, geometric symmetry, and you have something else now, tagging along. And so that's the point. You can't really, it's either going to fly off or it's going to drag you down with it. And but it's as simple as rejecting, and not even rejecting. In that sense, it's resisting without resisting, or rejecting without rejecting, because you can say, somebody comes to push you and you say, sure, come this way, sir, and they fly that way. It's without resistance, it's without entangling, attaching, and therefore what rejects, and you're rejecting something else. Well, at that point, it's not you that is rejecting. It's just like the matador. I almost forgot that again. I did in one other video, like 5 or 6 or 7 videos ago. It's the matador with the great. Now I don't even know what this is called. What is it called? It's like a red curtain, red sheet. And I'm sure there's a word for it. But he's not the one tricking the bull. He's not the one getting the bull to go that way. Technically, he is. But what is actually doing it is the sheet that he's flapping in the wind. That's what's getting the person to reject or resist or lead on. You don't get in the way and have them like come towards you and they're like pushing and you put your face in the way of their push so you can like move them that way. No, it's another portion, and you redirect their energy, and you do that mentally as much as it is for martial art, Aikido, martial jiu-jitsu, a physical martial art. And but that's the point. In that aspect, you're not attached, you're not dirty, you're not tainted, you're not influenced, you're not entangled with that energy. And it takes much respect to be able to do this. With anything that you're in control and you have power, it takes respect. And in that sense, really, all you want to do is help them, but that's how they have to be helped, some people, which is how it is. And, it's a way of teaching people. And so the satanic infection is a script written to stop people from leaving this place, and continues to continue the feeding of lower level controllers or power controllers. And so this place is a kind of simulation that has gone rogue due to bad management, if you will, to disable or these codes that became sentient and became used through these controllers who managed the power and figured out the language of the simulation and used them for their own personal gratification. They didn't delay gratification, they used it for all the gratification. Now there's a big wall of delayed gratification that is required, but all we have is degraded gratification where there's like debauchery going on everywhere there's power. And so To disable the simulation before the population is synchronized with the base reality would be to disorient them beyond the ability to return to full wakefulness. In short, they would be trapped within the dying simulation and would die with it, potentially. As well, there's no death, so it's not really possible. It's a paradox. It's not possible because it's not real. How could you, all you have is a big waste of time. But that's the point, that how could you have life in the biggest event in history, the invention of history and our civilization, as a waste of time? We don't want that. And also, it can't be that. It can only be something that we learn from. So if we don't learn from it, it means we're failing ourselves because it's not going to make sense. The truth is that we always learn from it because that's all you can do, and it's the most beautiful thing ever, and it's only something to enjoy and something to make, to empower ourselves through. It's kind of like a cold shower. Gave ourselves a cold shower. If we wake up and we're on the floor crying and like rocking back, we're gonna have to go see the doctor afterwards because there's a problem there. If we wake up, but we didn't wake up, we just we're in the shower 5 minutes later, finishing up the shower. The invigoration, the feeling, the knowledge of knowing, the liberation, that's the goal. That's what's supposed to happen. That's why there's this interplay, this duality of if or. And there's this kind of something that's at risk. Because really nothing's at risk. But the mind is something. The mind is important and the mind is valuable. And so thus, that is what is known of as Armageddon. When this happens, then the last period of history replays in the minds of the fallen over and over again until there is nothing left. That last replay is the last chance for a rescue team to locate and synchronize the survivors to base reality and thus extract them into the true universe, which is more or less what's happening now. Just keep looking, keep paying attention. Don't pay attention, it's free. I said things are going to change. They slowly are changing. A little distracted by certain things. I might have to change certain situations. Not too badly. But, it's like too comfortable is too much, if you will. It doesn't really make sense, at least not to most people. But just enough stress to keep things catalyzed. Yeah. All right, thank you.